Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of this podcast. Today we're going to be touching on something that is really, really fundamental. I can't really think of many things that are more important than this, really, in terms of language acquisition and the way you approach language learning. And essentially, it's your mindset. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. Different types of strategies, different types of approaches, and how we can help you to sort of upgrade or maybe rethink the way you think about your performance in English. And as usual, Alistair is here with me. Hi, Alistair. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thanks. And you?
Good. I'm good. Yeah. So today it's all about mindset, and in particular, to make it clear, I'm going to tell a little story about a race, right? Recently we had the Olympics, and this was actually not a race that was in the Olympics. It's more a video that has been seen on social media. Lots of people have seen this video. I don't think you've seen this video, have you, Alistair?
No. It's one of these, what do they call it, went viral, as they say?
Yeah,
I've never seen
a viral
it. I
video,
actually thought, when you mentioned it in your Friday email, when this first came up, this topic, I thought it was in the Olympics, but I've been on holiday during the Olympics. I saw very little of it. Well, nothing really. And I thought this must have happened recently in Paris, but no. Apparently, it's an old race.
It's an old video. Yeah, and the basic idea is very, very simple. It's a video of a woman running around a track, racing, normal sort of running track, an oval running track, and suddenly she falls over. And she falls over quite badly. And so, by the time she picks herself up, you kind of think, well, that's going to be absolutely impossible now to, she might as well give up.
Yeah,
she might as well
abandon
the race. But she doesn't do that. What she does is she stands up and she starts to run again. And you see her running, and then bit by bit, you notice that she's, got a good rhythm. She's focused on...
She wasn't injured, obviously. She was able to get up and run. Although it may have been painful.
Yeah, exactly. So you notice that she's sort of got some momentum, and then you notice that she catches up. So she's fallen over, but then she catches up with the rest. And you think, wow, that's quite incredible that even after that bad fall, she has managed to catch up with the rest. And what's going to happen now?
Maybe she won't be last, at least. But you would expect her to be more than, someone near the end of the race, no?
That's right. But no, she manages to catch up. And then, of course, it comes to the final 100 meters, and she manages to basically sprint past everybody and actually win the race.
Wow, okay? I'll have to check out this video. It sounds amazing.
Yeah, there are similar videos.
Must have been a reasonable distance to be able to say. It must have been at least 1,500 meters or more, 5,000 to be able to have the time to catch up with the rest.
That's right.
It's not 400 meters or something like that, I doubt.
No. Also, if if it was 100 meters, like the 100-meter race, you wouldn't have any chance, would you?
No, absolutely.
But no. So this is a kind of like metaphor about how we need to, in many cases, focus on our own race, right? We need to focus, or try to at least focus on our own race rather than focusing on others. And at least in terms of language learning, there is always this attraction or sort of idea or potential danger of looking at others and seeing their ability to speak in English and comparing ourselves to them, right? And this really is kind of a very negative way of looking at our progress, right? Because we just basically seeing somebody who's very good and saying, okay, well, I'm not as good as them, so how this is no good. I don't feel good. I'm comparing myself against them, and the comparison is not good, right? And so this is kind
confidence. It's
as
bad
well.
For your self-esteem,
absolutely.
You lose confidence. You maybe feel like giving up. Like this woman didn't give up. It's a good phrasal verb. No, she didn't give up. She could have abandoned the race. I've got no chance to win. There's no point continuing. But no, she decided to carry on. obviously didn't know she could win, but I think it was like, I'm going to finish, even if I finish last, I'm finishing the race. I'm crossing that finishing line, because that's still an achievement rather than giving up. No, so it's that positive idea, no, a mindset. Not to compare yourself to others, not to get too down on yourself or self-critical, lose confidence because you think, oh, everyone's better than me.
Yeah.
The problem is sometimes, and we've talked about this before, is obviously there will be people better than you. There's always someone who speaks a language better than you. Or incredibly well. They might be bilingual or something, or have an amazing level for whatever reason. But sometimes people, like a lot of my clients are always like, oh, everyone's better than me, my English is terrible. And I always say, obviously, I don't know because I wasn't in that meeting, or I can't hear the other people around you speaking English. Yeah. So I don't know. But I think people sometimes assume incorrectly people are better or much better than them when perhaps they're not. It's just your feeling or sensation because you've been very negative about yourself and your own abilities. And I sometimes think, I wish I could be a fly on the wall, nice expression, in one of these meetings with this client of mine and listen to the people in the meeting. And I'm sure in many cases I say, so this is the guy you think is much better than you, really? Now, making loads of mistakes. It's no better than you. Maybe a bit more fluent because he's more confident, more self-belief, speaks a lot because he's not shy, not embarrassed. No tiene vergüenza, as they say. That's the only difference, really, between you and this person. They speak, they don't care about making mistakes, so they sound really good because they're fluent and they speak a lot. Whereas you're nervous, you don't want to speak, you're embarrassed, you don't want to make a mistake. But actually, your English is, in terms of grammar at least, and vocabulary, is no different. But people have this idea, oh, everyone's better than me. And so that's another point to take into account.
No, it is. That's a very good point. A very, very good point. I mean, it's often connected to also if you analyze a little bit of what your personality is like in general, right? Yeah. Like, are you an extrovert or are you an introvert, right?
Definitely.
Now, there are many, extroverts like to communicate in general, introverts less so. So if you're an introvert in Spanish, well, then you can't hardly expect to be an extrovert in English, So be fair with yourself as well, in terms of like, what would my performance what would my performance be normally in Spanish? Well, okay, let's compare that to how I would do in English, and then maybe we can be more fair, But I mean, I think your point there is really, really interesting because you kind of connected it to confidence, and then the key question would be, how can you get that confidence? How can you, if you don't feel that confidence, how can you get that confidence? And that's kind of like the $1 million question, right? Really, essentially, it's like, how can you build that? But that's really why focusing on your own race, then incrementally, bit by bit, you will maybe see that element of confidence coming. It's like anything, right? It's like maybe you're learning to play an instrument, or you're learning a new sport, right? At the beginning, you're not confident at all, but incrementally, bit by bit, that confidence will come. So but you can't expect that confidence to come the next day. It's something that's,
to drive a car,
that's progressive. Yeah, well, absolutely.
It's progressive. It's little by little. Yeah. And there's moments where you think, this is impossible, I can't do this.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
I'll never get any better. Well, like with a car, when you first try, it seems impossible. I'll never be able to drive a car. But you do. Right. Everyone, 90% of people, finally, you learn how to drive a car. And then when you can like, how couldn't I do this? It's so easy. You don't even think about it. So,
yeah. It reminds me of a small anecdote that I heard recently on a podcast with Gary Lineker, who's a famous English football player who then more recently, not recently now, but like maybe 20 years ago, 30 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, had to kind of convert from being a footballer to somebody who had to present on television.
And he presenting TV shows, which is totally different skill from playing football.
Of course, absolutely, yeah. And he used to drive home every day thinking that he couldn't do it and that it would be impossible for him to do, because he just really found it extremely difficult and felt literally that it would be really he couldn't see how he was going to get better at sort of presenting a TV program, but he just kept going and the transition,
now he's
obviously
one of the best in the business and highly respected and earning a huge salary, I've seen recently.
Well, that's true. Yes, that's true.
But
that's true.
He's very good at what he does.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So yeah, it's kind of, that's why mindset is fundamental, isn't it? It's just the way that you look at it. And if you can try to focus on you rather than all the people around you, then I think that's a good first step, at least.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think you said, you went on to say about, when you're focusing on your race, like this woman, and not looking at the others constantly and comparing, is you can compare, but compare yourself to where you were before. This is important that because you think, oh, my English is the same, I never improve, I never get any better, but you have. So you've probably forgotten where you were 12 months before or 3 years previously. So everyone started with nothing at some point, whether it was at school or whenever you began, and you have progressed enormously, or in most cases. But you sort of forget because you don't notice, because it's a gradual process. So,
this is really, really interesting, because I think language learning in particular can be very deceptive in that way. I don't know about your language, journey, Alistair, but certainly in mine, it's sort of like you kind of feel as if you're not progressing until the point that you kind of realize that suddenly you've achieved it.
I did that. Can't believe it.
Yeah. So it's very deceptive. It's very deceptive in that way, because you kind of, for a long, long time, you feel as if you're not progressing, and until then, suddenly one day you realize, oh, I'm now participating in a conversation that would have been impossible for me to do.
You have to sort of look back in you and think, I couldn't have done that. I'm sitting here chatting. I don't know. You've gone out for a beer with 3 Spanish friends, and you're sitting there for 2, 3, 4 hours, talking, communicating Spanish. Communicating your ideas, having a very nice time. It's that moment when you realize you're enjoying, you're not thinking you're speaking Spanish. It's not a task. It's just natural, like the same in your own language. Like if you went out with your English mates or friends for a beer, it's really no different. Okay, a bit more difficult. Sometimes you have to think a bit more, concentrate a bit more. So it's not exactly the same, but it's just, I had a very pleasant evening out with these guys. Oh, yeah, and it was in Spanish, but that's the least input. That's irrelevant almost. That's not the point. And when you suddenly realize, oh, I did that, and then you think back to when you, in our case, first arrived in Madrid, and you're like, my God, the idea that I could sit there for 4 hours in a bar chatting to 3 Spanish people in Spanish all night, and was unthinkable. It's like Gary Lineker, you think, I'll never be able to do that. And then you've done it, and you go, oh, wow, yeah. And so what you're doing is comparing your own race, and looking back of what you've achieved over a certain period of time, and then you go, oh, okay, maybe I'm not so bad actually.
This is a very, very powerful mind way of thinking about it, right? And we will come back to that, because it actually links with some of the comments actually. But we do have a few that we've highlighted, right, from our listeners, Alistair. I think you've got a first 3 for us.
Yeah.
Maybe you could
actually, and we've selected a few. This got quite. A lot of people very like this email, and were very complimentary, and said some of them said, really has helped them and to look at things in a different way. So that's good to know.
That's useful. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. So the first one here I've got is from, I'm not sure how to, forgive me for the pronunciation, Irielis, I think. I'm not sure it's male or female. I think it's female, but I'm not sure. And he or she says, I completely agree. Sometimes I tend to compare myself with others and lose focus on what I need to do to advance. But thinking about my race, I've improved my English over the past year. Thank you. So there you are. So that's exactly what we were saying.
Yeah, exactly what we were saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then another one. Head there, to be honest.
Yeah, hit the nail on the head. Nice expression. So another one, similar. You're completely right. Sometimes we lose our time looking at the lives of others instead of looking at ourselves and our own progress. And that's somebody called Lena. So similar idea. Well, that's sort of general in life as well, no?
Of course.
Apart from
absolutely.
Comparing ourselves to others, and the grass. Good expression. The grass. What's it?
Greener.
The
grass is always greener.
Yeah,
greener.
On the other side, or whatever. So you always think people have life is better than yours. No?
That's
so
right.
This comparing thing again, and being unhappy because you feel inadequate, or people are better than you, or have more than you.
Sure.
It's a human trait. I think in general.
Yeah.
So there's 2.
Human condition.
human condition, human characteristic, I think, in general.
Yeah.
And then I think there's one more. Yes, this I think is from Elisenda, I think, if I've got the right name. And she says,
yes, I think so.
I absolutely agree. Mindset is a powerful tool, and in a long distance race, so she's, using your metaphor of the race, is what allows you to cross the finish line. Many runners are faster than you, but building self-confidence in every single kilometer you run, it's your own race, you will achieve all that you want. She's very much gone following your metaphor of the athlete and the race, no?
Yeah.
Very interesting, very well
in the case,
explained.
I mean, it's true. Yeah, I mean, in my story, the runner, the woman won, but what she's saying here is even if you don't win, you every step of the way you're building confidence, right?
Yeah,
which is fantastic. I mean, that's where the real
it's not
work
necessarily
is
the
being
winning.
done.
Yeah, I mean, obviously in this story she wins, which is amazing.
Yeah,
but it's the crossing the finish line, it's finishing the race, not giving up, keeping going, and you learn from that experience and you improve, even if you finish last, but you finished. You didn't abandon.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's a very nice comment there from Elisenda.
Yeah. Yeah, good. And we've got two more, actually. One which actually referred back to a previous email that I sent, which is from Eric. And he said that he felt that it was very closely related to the gap and the gain philosophy, which he really, really likes. Now, the gap and the gain philosophy is an interesting one, which is similar idea, where instead of looking at the gap, you need to look at the gain. So if we look at it in this particular context of language learning, rather than looking at the gap between you and potentially like a fluent or bilingual speaker, you're looking at the gain that you have achieved over a certain period of time. Okay. Now, this can be applied, I think it's a very powerful philosophy because it can be applied to anything, right? You could be connected to your children, for example, where you say, okay, they're not brilliant at school, or they're finding it tricky, or they're finding it difficult, or they're finding it challenging, right? Yeah. And so you could really sort of say to them, oh, why are you not doing better? You should be doing better, basically making them feel bad for not really being at the level that they should be at. Okay. But on the other hand, you could look at their gain rather than the gap that still remains. So the gap, maybe if you put the gap to the side and you say, okay, there's still things that we need to work on, but the gain that child has achieved over a certain period of time is still huge if you compare it to, 3 months ago, 9 months ago, 1 year ago. And so I think that's a very, very nice way of sort of, in a way, another type of metaphor, another framework. There's probably a better way to say it. It's a sort of mental framework of thinking about how you measure progress, essentially, right?
Yeah, be more positive, focusing on the positive, not just the negative.
I mean, it's a similar, you could say it's similar to the glass half empty, glass half full, which is an expression that exists both in English and in Spanish, right?
Yeah, the more pessimistic or optimistic point of view, of looking at life or things in general. That's right. Yeah.
And then following on from that, I got a message from Abdiel, and he says something really, really interesting, which is very much connected to sort of the gap and the gain philosophy and what we've been talking about. And he says, if I compare myself to where I was 12 months ago versus now, the difference is huge. Not just my English skills have improved, looking back, realizing the things I've accomplished in spite of the challenges, as well as the maturity I have now makes me feel proud, which is incredible. When we understand that we should compare ourselves only to ourselves, that's definitely a game changer. Very nice expression. Very nice one to finish on with, Abdiel. I mean, I think that's very, very powerful to think about these types of things. And I think mindset is something that would be very interesting to focus on a little bit more as we do a few more podcasts, because I think mindset is fundamental, absolutely fundamental. You can, in many ways, learn the mechanics of language in a certain way. But if your mindset is not really adapted or focusing in the right direction, then you can almost learn as much as you want. but if your mindset is not right, you won't achieve your goals that you're looking for.
Yeah.
So
Well, we have
important.
sort of looked at this topic slightly different angle in the past. I think we did an episode talking about this concept of vergüenza and being embarrassed, and this thing about not wanting to appear foolish. I think it was something to do with a Mark Twain quote or something.
Yeah.
If you don't want to look silly, keep your mouth shut or something like that. I don't remember.
Yeah, sure.
It's maybe 4 or 5 episodes ago. And it's a similar thing, really. It's the same. It's like we said, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be embarrassed. Speak. Because if you never speak, if you sit there quiet, not participating in things at work, in meetings, etc., then you're never going to improve. The only way to improve is to do it, to throw yourself into it. Like expression we looked at a long time ago in the podcast was to throw yourself in the deep end of the swimming pool, no?
Yeah.
So to be thrown in at the deep end, and you sink or swim. So at that point, you've got a choice, no? You sink or swim in the deep end of the swimming pool. And this is a bit sort of similar. It's like you just got to go for it, say what you have to say, speak, be brave. It's difficult. Especially if, your personalities we spoke about before, no? If you're not very outgoing, you're a bit shy. And don't worry about making mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. Even native speakers make mistakes all the time. Also, you need to remember nobody speaks perfect English, or very few people.
That's right.
By doing that, and it's painful, difficult, stressful at the beginning, you will get better. It's just a fact. It's like anything. You practice it, you do it regularly, a sport or whatever. You suffer a lot at the beginning, but you will get better. But if you don't do that, you just try to avoid speaking English at all times because you don't like it, you're embarrassed, you're afraid, you're nervous, then really you're not going to improve. And it's sort of a similar thing. No, it's mindset. It's all in here in the end.
Yeah. Yeah, no, completely. I think that is so true. I mean, almost sometimes you can think about it in terms of where I think many of us want to be perfect, and that then stops us from trying to give it a go, right?
Yeah.
And that's actually the barrier in itself, because if we don't give it a go, then we will never progressively get better. So if you have a kind of mindset of, okay, almost assuming that you're going to make a few mistakes, kind of like accepting that, okay, it's very unlikely that it's going to go perfectly, but just being realistic about it, and then saying to yourself, okay, but then suddenly the disappointment is not so much when you're realistic about it. Okay, you say, okay, I think I probably might make some mistakes, but I'll learn from those mistakes, and then I'll get better and progressively get better. If you sort of have this high level of expectation right from the beginning, then is going to be difficult, because you always sort of come away with a sense of, and this has actually happened recently to me, and I think it's kind of interesting to have personal anecdotes as well here. Even recently, I was in a conversation in Spanish, and I felt afterwards that my performance wasn't particularly good. It was a conversation where I felt I could have contributed more. But afterwards, I think I said to myself, okay, well, what was the problem there? Was it my Spanish? Was it because I didn't understand? Or was it because I didn't actually have anything? In this particular case, the conversation was a family conversation about individuals I didn't really know. So in the end, you have to sort of be fair as well in your analysis of your performance. Yeah. I think that can help too, Often I'm the first person who's kind of like, oh, I should have done better then. I should have done better. But then I try to at least make myself feel better and saying, really, was it your Spanish that was the problem there? Or was it actually something else?
The topic.
Yeah.
Maybe in your own language, in English, you might have, not performed perfectly because you didn't feel you had the right vocabulary. So it's not always the other language. I mean, obviously the other language is a large part of it, but not necessarily. Or just that day you were feeling bad, you were feeling tired. There's many factors can influence. You have good days, bad days in another language.
Many variables.
Have to be realistic.
Many variables. Yeah. Good, Alistair. Amazing. Really nice one. Super, super important. Probably one of the most important episodes we've done for a while. So thank you very much for your time. And hopefully if everything is okay, we'll see each other again next week. Okay.
I hope so. I'm sure we will. Anyway, a pleasure
All right.
as always. Cheers.
All right. See you
Ciao.
then.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.